Hello and welcome back to Making a Home. So it's been a while since the last update, and really the reason is that not much has been going on. We've kind of had a lack of time and a lack of money, so the house has kind of just been on hold for the last few months. And particularly in the garden, we didn't really spend much time out there at all in the winter months for obvious reasons. Pretty much the only noteworthy thing that happened was this random gust of wind blew our barbecue halfway across the garden while leaving everything else completely intact. Very strange. But as the weather started to warm up, we began to venture back out there again. And one of the first things that we did was to jet wash down all the fence panels and remove all of the moss and dirt. And then Rach spent some time painting them grey. And they do look a lot smarter now, and they match our garden furniture. And it's just made the space feel a little bit more modern. So as the weather started to warm up and the days began to get a bit longer, we did actually start spending a bit more time sitting out in the garden again. And really, it is quite a pleasant space to be. There's lots of nice trees in the background and pretty flowers. And in the garden itself, there's lots of nice little plants. And it's very pleasant to spend an afternoon just sitting out there. But what we began to notice was that on very hot days, in the afternoon, the sun is beating directly into the back of the garden, which of course is very nice, but it would be good to have a little bit of protection from the main heat of the sun in the afternoon. So through my work, I have access to a points system which build up over time, and that allows me to purchase various random things on a website. And one of the things I managed to find was this cantilever parasol. So I purchased that and we set it up in the garden, and actually it's about the perfect size to provide a bit of shade over the garden furniture set. During the first heat wave, I spent quite a lot of time out there, and it was very pleasant to just sit under the parasol, looking out over our nice sunny garden, sipping on a nice cold beer. The parasol has this base which you're supposed to anchor down, so I just set up a temporary solution using these bags of compost, and that allowed me to shift it around into different positions and try and figure out where the best place would be for it to be permanent. So one of our aims for this weekend was to set the base into a more permanent position. And the other thing in the garden which has been a bit annoying is the position for this post hole for the Rotary clothesline. The problem is that when you have the clothesline up, it basically just gets in the way. You have to squeeze past all the clothes if you want to go out to the shed or to the back of the garden. And also, if you're sitting on the garden furniture, all you can see is just a mass of hanging clothes, which is not particularly pleasant. So the plan was to remove this horrible lump of concrete and then reinstall a new post hole a bit further back in the garden. So the first thing we did was to lift up the decking in the corner of the garden so that we could see what was underneath and how we could potentially position the base for the parasol. The decking has been screwed down with these really bizarre screws that have this square head on them, so I had to get a specific square head for the drill, which is a bit annoying. But once I got hold of that, we were able to start lifting the boards and have a look at what was underneath. And my gosh, it was quite a mess. Not surprising really, considering the workmanship that we've seen so far in this house, but just another example of how these people just really didn't give a damn about whatever they were doing. A year later, and we're still pulling up Virginia creeper.
I've just never come across a plant I hate as much as
Virginia creeper. And typical of the workmanship in this place, they didn't even bother to clean out underneath before they started laying this decking. They just basically laid it on top of all this rubbish. And to level it, they've just put like little bits of random brick and wood. No finesse here whatsoever. I mean, seriously, like, you call that a good job? Oh, don't worry, it's not level, just chuck a rock under it. That'll be fine. What about all this rubbish and old batteries? Nah, just leave them where they are, mate. No one will see it. Honestly, these people. This is why you have to check carefully for chonky boys. Off. So we're just trying to get the positioning of the base for the parasol. It's a bit of a awkward one because it's got these long legs on either side. So if you put it too much at an angle, this pole goes inwards, and we want to have this quite close to the wall. So kind of something like that I think is going to be, maybe even like that, probably going to be our best bet. We're currently trying to decide whether we should just lift all of the decking and just go back to these paving slabs for now till such time as we can put new decking in. So we're going to try pressure washing it to see what it looks like when it's clean. Right, so after a jet wash it does look considerably better, but I think we're going to keep the decking even though it is falling apart in the corners. Just goes with our furniture a bit better.
Look at that chunky boy.
Hello everybody. I am a very large spider.
Thumb for reference.
Thumb for reference. That is a chunk and a half.
So after playing around a bit with the positioning and just trying it with a parasol, we have arrived at this as the final position. Looks a bit weird, but actually it makes quite a lot of sense to do this sort of angle. Basically it means that where the pole comes out is going to be right on the end of the decking, so we don't have to modify too much of this underside of the decking. We can screw into this paving slab and that paving slab, which will just give it a bit of extra ballast. And on this end here, where we're going into the earth, we're going to put some Postcrete underneath that, and then this stump is going to go on top of that as extra weight. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I mean, we're not going to be leaving the parasol up when it's hurricane weather, so really it's just got to be enough to stop it blowing in the breeze. What are you doing? What did we say about going underneath the decking?
No.
Right, so the plan is I'm going to use this Postcrete to make a kind of foundation here, and then we're going to leave it to set, and then basically screw a concrete fixing into that. Right, so the way Postcrete works is you basically just fill your hole up with water, then you pour in your Postcrete, and you basically just swill it around and then you let it set. So step one, fill the hole with water. It would help if I turn the tap on. So this is where I went wrong, and being a typical man, I didn't read the instructions properly. You're not supposed to fill the entire hole with water. What you're supposed to do is just fill it up at the bottom and then pour in your Postcrete and then put a little bit of water on the top. But you're not supposed to completely cover the whole lot with water, which is what I did here. I also didn't account for the fact that as soon as you pour in the Postcrete, of course that's going to displace some of the water. So that meant that water and cement mix went everywhere.
Maybe use that to scrape it back in.
I mean, if it adds a little bit more here, it'll just make it more stable, right? So it's not the end of the world. So, despite the fact that I really failed to read the instructions properly and put way too much water in the hole, it has actually started to set pretty quickly. Unfortunately, the nice mirror flat finish that I had was ruined by our cats because one of them jumped in it. Well done. So while we were waiting for the Postcrete to set, we turned our attention to this concrete base for the Rotary clothesline. Our friendly neighbour Pete was kind enough to lend us a jackhammer, and that actually did make quite short work of the concrete, although it was much thicker at the bottom than we were expecting.
Great. Oh yes! There you go. Yeah, little bastard.
Haha, victorious! So this is the state of play at the moment. Everything's a bit of a mess, but we have successfully removed the old windy dry post. So I filled it with soil and we've put grass seed down, so hopefully that will fill in pretty quickly. Concrete is not set, not by quite a long way, so we're going to just leave that. Definitely my fault for putting too much water in it, but you learn as you go. I mean, I don't think it's going to be completely dry by tomorrow, but it'll certainly be solid enough hopefully that we can start putting all of this back together again. So yeah, I think we're going to leave things for the day now and come back to it tomorrow. Another random job that we tackled this weekend was to put up some cabling at the front of the house for the wisteria to climb on. It's getting to the point now where it needs to be trained along the front over the door, and also the one that's going up the wall on the far corner of the house needs somewhere to go once it gets above the trellis. So this solution looks pretty elegant, and once it weathers a bit, you'll barely even be able to see it at all. Right, so it's day 2, and we're currently just trying to lift up some of this vegetation here because we need to fill in this hole. It's difficult to see on camera, but basically there's a big square hole here. This is where the fish pond used to be. And we would like to try and keep some of this vegetation and put it back over the top. So we're going to try and lift as much of it as we can. Meanwhile, the concrete has started to set, but it's not completely hard yet, so I don't think we can continue with this job at the moment. I think we'll probably have to wait until next weekend. Alright, so making progress with this, and you might be asking, why would we bother to try and save any of this? But actually this is a good little bit of natural foliage. It doesn't all have to be grass. In fact, just having a plain lawn with only grass, not particularly healthy actually. You want a good variation of different flowers and stuff. Alright, so I've cleared the patch. We've tried to save as much of it as we can. And I was thinking, it's a bit of a shame, because when we level this out, then it's just going to become lawn like the rest of the garden. So what we decided is we're going to pull a line down here and dig that out to the same level. And then we can put all these wildflowers down the side in like a natural bed, and then the rest of it can just be grass. And that way we can keep some of the nice biodiversity that we got going on here. Just nice for the bees and bugs and things. Okay, so we've now dug out this bed. It was quite the operation. There was loads of Virginia creeper, plus also the root of this thing, which is the tree that was on the other side on the neighbor's garden. And there was a huge big root that went all the way across here, so we had to literally hack it out with a saw. So we laid down all of the topsoil that we have, and as you can see, we've come up a little bit short. So what we did is Rach went onto Facebook Marketplace and we found someone just down the road who has a massive pile of soil that they're trying to get rid of, because they were digging out some of their garden to put a shed in. So we went down there and we picked up some buckets of soil, and we can lay that down, and then if we need more we can go back and get more, because he's got a huge big pile of the stuff. So that was a bit of a win and didn't cost us anything at all. Right, so I have just dug a new hole for our Rotary clothesline, aka the windy dry, and I've basically filled the bottom in with some stones, and that's enough just to put the pole in there and have it stand up. Rach has just gone to get the level so we can make sure that it's upright, and then we're going to pour in some Postcrete and set it into place. So concrete is in, and we're just now going to wait for it to set. We got it as level as we could. Probably isn't exactly right, but it's good enough. Alright, so this is the state of play at the end of the weekend. I have moved all of these wildflowers down to the side. I don't know if they're going to survive. I think they've taken quite a lot of strain, but we'll see. I mean, if they do die, then hopefully they'll just reseed and new ones will grow in their place. But basically you can see the line down here. That's really going to be where the little wildflower bed is. The rest of this is all going to be just regular grass. Filled in soil into the corner there as best as we can. We did go and get another load of soil from those people. Still isn't quite enough. There's still a little bit of a depression there, but it's kind of subtle enough that I think once it's all grassed over, it probably won't really be that noticeable. And we have the post hole for the windy dry installed. We've put a layer of soil over the top and seeded this whole area with grass. So hopefully in a few weeks we should have grass starting to fill in here. So that should essentially mean that this whole area basically is just a nice square patch of grass now, and then we have this little bed down the side here where we can just let things grow wild. This Postcrete here is still pretty wet. I mean, it is hard enough now that you could actually stand on it, but I'm not gonna start putting everything back just yet. I'm gonna give it another week or so just to fully cure. So for now, this part of the decking has just got to stay like this, which means we can't really put our furniture back. A little bit annoying, but it's all right for now.
So that's where we're at with the garden, and we'll have to do some more work in another couple of weeks. But it's starting to take shape now, and once the plants all settle a bit and the grass grows, I think it'll look pretty cool. Unfortunately, we're going to have to rip up a lot of the grass again, because one of the next big jobs we have to do is install the soakaway, and that's going to handle the water coming off the roof of the studio building once that new roof is in place. In the meantime, if you want to see some of the earlier garden videos, I've put up a couple of them here on the right-hand side, so feel free to dig into those. Dig into those. Get it?